Welcome to Running Down the Clock, where we break down all of this week's big news, events, and controversies from the National Football League. Over the next 45 minutes, we will give you basic fan perspective and opinion on the most important stories and moments happening now. So, let's start the clock. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Running Down the Clock. I am Tyler Walzak here with the always pleasant Poya Ricey. Poya, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. So we're not doing divisions. We've done all those. We've done all the conferences. We're kind of just going to be doing some fun questions here a week before kickoff, Thursday night next week. Lions, Chiefs. Very excited. We will have a special episode next week for everybody. I haven't even told Puya what it is yet, but I do have plans for something special that is a little bit different, a little bit more fun. It's going to be a good time. But
can I guess what it is? Can I guess what it is?
What is it?
Are you inviting me to watch a Lions game with you?
No.
No.
God, no. Are you kidding me? You want me to have somebody over to my house on what is arguably the one and only time the Lions will kick off the NFL? You want me to take time to host you or anybody?
You don't have. All you have to do is open the door when I arrive. That's really after that.
And I gotta talk and sit with you. You're gonna see me cry. You're gonna see me sweat. You're gonna see me.
Yeah, but scream. I see that stuff when the Lions lose all the time, anyway.
Yeah, but this time I've got hope, so it's a little different. Okay. It's a little different. The lights will be off, all the windows will be closed, and I'll just be sitting there with my legs crossed, hoping for something. You know what, though? Happen.
I could just ask your girlfriend. I'm sure she'd invite me over.
She's not allowed to be here either. She's got to go. She doesn't know it yet, but she's not allowed to be here either. Okay, let's get to some quick news here. Kind of not shocking, but Kyler Murray will not be removed from the physically unable to perform list, which means that he will miss the first 4 weeks, the first 4 games for the Arizona Cardinals. Not shocking, but I mean, they also at the same time cut their backup quarterback, Colt McCoy. So they're going with Joshua Dobbs, who was signed to the team last week off of the Browns preseason roster. They've given up on the season already. Can we say that? Are they allowed to say that? They're not allowed to say it, but we can say it for them.
Well, I think there's still a lot of people fighting for jobs on that team and like kind of a disorganized in a way, like that. The teams on paper, it looks terrible. The organization obviously has some issues right now. And I think Kyler Murray, for his own sake, he's got to be looking for a fresh start somewhere else, right?
I mean,
to salvage anything of an NFL career.
Last year at this time, he just re-signed for like 5 years, something like that.
Yeah. But
so that's a lot of money. It's
not looking good for him because he hasn't really played.
We got hurt last year towards ACL in December. So they weren't expecting him to be back at the beginning of the season, but they also haven't had a plan for that. No. Don't you think that if you're going into the offseason knowing that your highest paid player, your star quarterback, would, if he's not there, you'd have a plan to start the first 4 games? Doesn't seem like they even have a plan.
They did draft like draft a QB though, right?
Sure.
So that's the backup plan. Pop him in there and just shatter his confidence.
That's a brutal plan.
He's back.
That's a brutal plan. I don't know what Arizona's doing, but it doesn't look good. But let's stop talking about them because they're boring. Last place team this year, probably. So this somewhat Lions news, but it's Matthew Stafford. So we had this problem in Detroit. I was always very reluctant to talk about his wife because I think she's kind of like in the same vein of Mahomes' wife, where oblivious to kind of a football culture, even though they've been kind of engulfed by it, like with their husbands being star quarterbacks. But she came out yesterday or the day before, depending on when you're listening to this, and she said Matthew Stafford has a hard time relating to the younger players. And she used the example that Matthew said, and I don't even think he said this. I think she's bullshitting and just making stuff up and kind of taking something that he said and putting it in her own words, has in the past come out of like the showers after games or practice, and guys would be sitting there playing cards. But now everyone's just on their phone, and everyone is just, as soon as they get out of the shower, they go on TikTok and see what's new on their phone, see what is happening with their friends. you are not that young, or sorry, you are not that old, Matthew Stafford, that you could play kind of the, oh, I remember back in my day we have cards and board games instead of phones. Like what a stupid thing to say, just in terms of like age, but also why is she talking about the dressing room? That does nothing to help the Los Angeles Rams this year.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like the comments don't help by any means. All they can do is just kind of make him look silly, make him look unrelatable, and it turns kind of a non topic into
Yeah,
possibly something. But yeah, I don't understand what the point of those comments are. Like, is he actually struggling with this?
I
Is this
the
something
only
he's actually
thing
struggling?
the only thing that I take out of this that's probably like, I don't, again, I've she has said some very stupid things in the past, and she's made dumb comments um about fan bases and teams and the structure of teams before, when even when she was back in Detroit.
Haven't we
um
said the same things?
yeah, but we're just making stuff up. She's actually has a voice, because if you say something like this, you've now alienated Matthew from the younger players altogether. And the only thing that tells me is that he is wanting to retire at the end of this year, because it seems like he's not having fun.
No, yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about the other week. Is Yeah, he just sounds like a grumpy old man that's
Yeah,
ready to go.
he's only 33 years old.
Yeah.
Like, uh, what? Like, the players on their cell phones? Yeah, cell phones have been around for like ever now, man. What do you mean people are on their cell phones now? It's what everybody does. Like, I get that you want to have camaraderie in the dressing room, but maybe instead of like complaining about it, go and talk to the guys about, like, go up to a guy on the cell phone and say something. But even then, this shouldn't have left the locker room. And who's she to bring it up? It
Yeah,
doesn't
I
make any
mean,
sense.
it's
You're not helping anybody. It doesn't motivate the team. It doesn't help him with his relationships with those younger players. All it does is make everybody go like, why the fuck is this lady talking? Because why the fuck is this lady talking? Who even put a microphone in front of her face to ask these questions?
who published the article?
I don't
Why
remember
did we
actually.
read it? Why are
We
we talking about it?
because we actually don't have a say. We're just voicing our opinion on it. But
Yeah,
anyways,
it's just not why me. I think it just means that the players are going to look at him like, "Hey, buddy, you okay? You okay?
yeah,
Something you want to talk about?"
yeah. Like, it's like that old man yells at cloud. Matthew Stafford just became that guy.
Yeah,
Okay, and then we have to talk about this, but I feel like you aren't wrong. Everybody in the world is talking about this over the last week, and that is Trey Lance traded to the Cowboys. We kind of picked up on this last week. Um, so he will go to back up Dak Prescott. Kind of a good move for the Cowboys, actually. You only lose a fourth round pick. Put a little pressure on Dak this year, because he kind of his contract is pretty big. They could make some moves to get out of him if he doesn't really perform this year. And then they have Trey Lance in the back, who I know you don't believe in, but they're set up for someone to kind of come in.
I'm not saying I don't believe in him. I just there's nothing to study on this guy for me. Like, what are we comparing him to? Like, I haven't seen him play. I haven't seen him play.
Uh, well, no one
How many
has.
how many plays has he or how many downs has he played since college?
There was I sent you that
I
stat. I
know.
forget what it was, but it's shockingly low.
It's shockingly low. The guy's only
Shockingly low
played in college and what was it, 400 snaps
in
through
like
college
total through
and
high school, college, and the pros.
yeah, I mean it's not a lot of experience.
No,
The story of it is how much San Francisco gave up for what they got in return in Trey Lance.
yeah,
And it's shocking how much they gave up.
they gave up
Now,
3 first round picks and a bit more, to Miami, to have the right to draft Lance third overall.
now any other situation, the GM, coach, somebody's losing a job over this.
Yeah,
It's a poor decision. The only thing that kind of salvages it is that that team is still competitive. The team is still good. They found their guy in Brock Purdy. If they were still scrambling after all this to find their quarterback,
yeah. John Lynch, the GM, would definitely be fired.
yeah. But is it not a blemish on their record when they try to go for their next job if they don't walk away with the Super Bowl win out of San Francisco.
A Super Bowl would heal all problems. Like
Yeah,
it would get
exactly.
rid of all things. So it would be
But
like, yeah, well,
so far they have one appearance.
yeah, yeah,
That's it.
yeah. But I mean,
I don't think that's enough.
like if you win it, like if
And
John
that was
Lynch,
before Trey Lance.
sure, but if no, Trey Lance was on the Super Bowl team last year,
They didn't go to the Super Bowl last year.
2 years ago. Trey Lance was on the team when they went to the Super Bowl with Garoppolo.
Was he? I don't think he was.
I don't think he was either. Anyways, they got close. I don't know if he was or not, to be honest.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong. But the thing is, if John Lynch goes to the Super Bowl with his San Francisco team, whatever interview he walks into, they'd be like, "Well, what about the Trey Lance trade?" You go, "Doesn't matter. We went to the Super Bowl. Went to the Super Bowl based off the team we built."
I get that. But they're fortunate that the NFC isn't the toughest it could be right now.
Yeah, well, they're still going to get judged on it this year because, again, I don't really have any faith in Brock Purdy. And we know that Sam Darnold has not had any success where he's been before. Let's just say for a quick second that Miami, what they did with those first 3 round picks, those 3 first round picks, was they drafted Jalen Waddle, who's now a star wide receiver. They used one of the picks in a trade for Tyreek Hill from Kansas City, star wide receiver. And they traded for Bradley Chubb to the Broncos, who is one of the better defensive players in the league. And then the Broncos went ahead and traded that 1st round pick to the Saints for Coach Sean Payton. So those 4 people there are pretty big names for Trey Lance to not have worked out.
Oh, I get it. What was so fascinating about Trey Lance in the first place that they had to have him?
Well, his again his skills, his raw skills were talked about for years. Like coming out of high school, highly recruited, went to North Dakota, but again because he didn't have much
Experience.
experience, and then in North Dakota he didn't really start, but he had the intangibles. That's the word I'm looking for, to get it done. But you're not wrong. I mean, right now you can't really, no one can really argue for Trey Lance. Everybody's kind of on the, well, why the hell did anyone even pick him in the first place?
Well, I'm not saying like you take a chance on a first round pick on him. I'm saying why would you give up so much for him?
Well, it was that you didn't, yeah,
Because
I don't
there's
know.
potential, right? Like you're saying, it was all potential. This guy could have this great upside.
Agreed. Agreed. You traded for the pick, not, but you knew you were going to use the pick on Trey Lance. Now, here's the thing that we have to think about is that there's another team out there right now that could very well fall into this. What were they thinking making that trade? The Broncos for Russell Wilson. They gave up so much, and if he doesn't pan out this year, that's going to be it's going to be just as bad as this Trey Lance trade. Agreed?
Agreed, but I think that one already is a bad trade. Like, I'm already more convinced that one's done because that was an organization that was more desperate, I guess. Well, I shouldn't say more desperate. I think they're already facing the fact that it was a bad trade. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be the Russell Wilson of old.
No, but he has to be better than he was last year.
Sure, but it is being slightly better than last year. Does that
He
make it a
doesn't
good
need to be
trade?
slightly better than he has to be significantly better than he was last year.
Yeah. I don't see the Broncos competing for the division. I don't see them competing for the wild card. I don't see them in the playoffs.
Okay, well,
So if non-playoffs is non-playoffs sufficient for Russell Wilson? He had a good season, but they didn't make the playoffs. I don't think so. I think it still goes down as a bad trade.
okay.
They were expecting for the money they gave him, they're expecting big things from him.
Well, okay, this is a good segue into this show. We're going to do some questions, we're going to do some predictions, we're going to do some hot takes. We're just going to do some topics about what could happen this season. And the first question that we have written down here is the first starting quarterback to get benched after starting as the week 1 starter. Do you think that could be Russell Wilson?
Frankly, no. I think they ride out the Russell Wilson thing. There's two schools of thought I have on this. Number one, it could just be the guy in Arizona, just because
That was the one thing I was thinking. It's like, let's take him out of there because that's They don't even know who's starting. So let's take Arizona out of the question.
But I was going to say likely Baker Mayfield. I think he'll get 2 or 3 games and then it's over.
Unfortunately, I kind of was thinking Baker as well, which is unfortunate. Also, maybe Desmond Ritter in that same division. They don't know what they have in him. Is he going to be able to get it done? Atlanta runs the ball more than anybody. But
The only saving grace I'll give to Desmond Ritter is I think it's just become a pattern for Baker Mayfield now to be, given starts and not working out. So I think his leash is shorter and shorter and shorter every team he goes to, as we've seen with every team he's gone from the Browns to the Panthers to the Rams to the Bucks. It has been shorter and shorter leash.
yeah,
Whereas Desmond Ritter is a younger guy with less, he needs his development time too, right?
right.
I don't think he's gone through his development time. So I don't think he's gone after 3-4 games.
The other two, so I have two. One of them is I I don't think it's controversial, but a lot of people might. The first one I'll go with though is the Tennessee Titans. Um, I'm not sure if Tannehill's their guy anymore, and they drafted two guys in the last 2 years behind him, so his leash might be pretty short this year as well. And then the other guy who everybody's super high on right now, I need to see more from, and that's Brock Purdy in San Francisco. I think he'll have a longer leash, but if he falls off significantly, if he actually shows up to be the guy that was picked last in the draft, they will go to Darno rather quickly based off of what they said about him in the offseason.
Difference for all these teams is San Francisco's got a way better team. Brock Purdy can rely on star players a little more easily than these other quarterbacks. He's got
Right.
running and receiving.
Yeah, he can just kind of dump it off to somebody, and do well. You're
Whereas
right.
Desmond Ritter, Bijan Robinson, we haven't seen him play yet.
Yep.
He doesn't really have, star caliber receivers.
No, they drafted Drake London and they drafted Kyle Pitts a couple years ago, who hasn't really performed up to his expectations, or the statistics aren't there.
No.
So you're right. Like, and Desmond Ritter was a third round pick. He only threw 2 touchdowns last year when he started, 0 interceptions, but only 2 touchdowns. I think everybody in the NFC South, except for maybe Derek Carr, kind of is shaky at quarterback right now. Bryce Young is probably not going to go anywhere because he's a first overall pick, and they're going to want to play him win or loss. But
CJ Stroud, he's probably going to get a bunch of games in, right?
Yeah,
he's could be a franchise quarterback. Get some development games into him. Give him the majority of the season to
that I think that you kind of nailed it with Baker Mayfield. I think odds are that he has the shortest leash as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, especially the fact that it was this close between him and Kyle Trask.
Yeah, they were both listed as starting quarterbacks 2-3 weeks ago. Okay, let's go to the next question here. Which player and which team has the most to prove this year? Your opinion. Who do you think? Let's start with team.
I think it's got to be the 49ers in the NFC, just for how their season ended. They could have competed with the Eagles in that championship game, but they didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have a quarterback. So obviously it all fell apart. They really had nothing going for them.
So they have the most to prove, you think?
On that side. And there's another team, which this will also segue into our next question. I think the Bills are a team who's kind of they're my pick for the team that really has to do something or shake up this team, because the AFC is tough. Like, they have the toughest, like one of the toughest divisions currently as well. They're falling short of their goal. They're not appearing in Super Bowls. They're not really getting that far. And I don't think that their team is going to get better. Like, I don't think next year they're just going to miraculously be better. That like, oh, everyone's got the experience now. The
Right.
experience is there. This is the window to start trying to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I agree. The Bills probably also have a lot to prove this year. I would go in the AFC. I would say that the Ravens have a lot to prove this year because they've had the same personnel. They've had the same problems for the last 2 or 3 years. This year is kind of like one of those, okay, we're sick and tired of the same old story. Either show us that you have a team or or else. And then the National Football League, or sorry, National Football Conference, the NFC, I would say the Lions have the most to prove. With all the hype, mainly because of the hype coming out of the end of last year, I think the Lions have the most to prove in the NFC in terms of making the playoffs. Everyone's expecting them to. They have the team to do it. They've got the coach in the right spot. Like it's just everything screams that the Lions have a lot of pressure on them, and they have a lot to prove this year.
I wouldn't
Um,
say it's that the Lions have a lot of pressure on them. I think it's that the Lions have a good opportunity in front of them with Green Bay being in a transitional phase, the Bears kind of being in a transitional period, and Minnesota being a team which a lot of people think were lucky to perform as well as they did last year, that they're kind of frauds for what their record showed. That this is actually a good opportunity. That it's not like, oh, the pressure's on the Lions, that they're the best team. They are probably the best team on paper, but I think it's just actually like this is the good window for them to actually compete and take that division.
But that leads to pressure, does it not?
It
Everybody
does,
in
but I mean,
Detroit
it
is expecting them to make the playoffs. That
there
never happens.
no, but it's also because the team is on the upswing. It's not just because there's a lot of great things expected. Like, you signed, you put up all this money, signed all these players, you made all these trades, you mortgaged your entire future for all these guys. Now it's time to put up or shut up type situation. It's not that they've mortgaged their entire future for this season. It's just things have kind of come together for them after a few seasons of trying to put together a team to salvage what Matt Patricia did.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
don't think it's like, like everybody's job is on the line. Like, hey, if you don't do it this year, everybody's fired, right? Like,
sure, but they still have the most to prove that they weren't just a
sure,
team out of
I don't
last year
disagree
that
with
just came out
that.
of nowhere.
My point was just it's a good situation for they have the most to prove, not that it's kind of a dire situation they have the most to prove.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
it's a good
Um,
opportunity for them.
I would say that if we had to choose a player with the most to prove, I would put that on Brock Purdy. You came out of nowhere last year. You're the last pick in the draft, and now the team has said you are our guy. Maybe Lamar Jackson as well has to do that. But I mean, like two other guys that have the most to prove. Geno Smith, maybe you can put him up there.
I think Deshaun Watson, that's my vote.
Ooh, that's
Most
a good one
approved.
too because this is his first full season back. They based the only guy to get a fully guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For the
you're right.
money
He
they're
does have
paying
the
him,
most to
for the
prove.
his little shakeup of the QB signings situation, he's got a lot, and he doesn't have a great situation.
Yeah. What about Aaron Rodgers?
No, because Aaron Rodgers is at the twilight of his career,
Right.
right? I know he personally wants to do well, like he doesn't like looking bad out there. But the reality is he is what, 38?
Uh, Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's old. Real
And
gray.
he is with a bunch of newer he's not in a system that he's been there his entire career that he grew up with. I'm sure they're giving him a lot of leeway, like people seem to like having him there. But the reality is if it doesn't end up in a Super Bowl, is everybody going to be shocked?
Um, I think they'll be disappointed.
They'll be disappointed, but I mean the rest of the world outside looking in, nobody's going to be like shocked, like, oh my god, this was the team, right? Like
Yeah, I don't have the
they're not the
Jets.
betting odds favorite to win the Super Bowl.
I don't even have them winning their division.
There you go. So
Okay. Well, what about your guy, Derek Carr? Does he have a lot to prove this year?
I think he does. Anytime you kind of get let go by your team, you got a lot to kind of show that, hey, I still have something in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a very competitive league. I think pretty much every quarterback outside of 5 of them have everything to prove this year.
Yeah, I mean,
You
I'm
know,
sure.
the
Yeah,
Eagles are on a revenge tour.
but that's not a fun answer at all.
No.
That's just saying everybody. It's a big time league. Everybody has to prove it.
Well, I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that their jobs aren't safe.
Okay, well if
But my guy's Deshaun Watson. I think he's got the most to prove because no more excuses now. Like hey, this is, buddy, you're getting paid a lot,
yeah.
and we haven't seen you play in 3 years now.
So you were talking earlier about the Bills and they have a kind of a prove it year. If they don't prove it this year, is this one of those teams that you think has to blow it up?
I think so. That's my
Yeah.
pick for teams that got to blow it up if it doesn't work this year. I'm going with the Bills. I don't think Stephon Diggs will be happy.
No, if they don't do well, if they don't go to the Super Bowl, Stephon Diggs is gone
Yeah.
easily. And so
So
I think you're right with that. There's another team that I had here. Where's here's the NFC, the Vikings. I think they need to blow it up now. I don't even think they need to wait to this year. Um, but I think the Vikings should be blowing it up. The Cardinals are already seemingly blowing it up. The Rams should blow it up because apparently the old guys and the young guys just aren't getting along. Um, that's kind of like, and everyone else is kind of going forward or just lingering to see what they have. But those, I think you're right. The Bills are very much on a prove it year or maybe blow it up next year.
the only
Vikings,
reason why I say the Bills is because the Bills have been kind of favorites in the last couple of years to go all the way.
yeah,
They are a competitive team. They are a good team, but it seems like they're just going to be this close without being able to get over that hump.
I agree. And I don't know what they did in the offseason to really help them that much in terms of like elite players to help Diggs out. What do we got next here? Okay. Which name player? Okay, who do you think a big name? If you had to guess one, this is just gonna be a hot take because there's no way to guess this, and it's a sucks to even talk about. But which player is gonna miss a significant portion of the season to injury? Which like star player?
So I have an answer for this, and it very well could just be wrong because it might not be this year, it might be some year, but Patrick Mahomes has not had to overcome injury yet. Every star player, at some point, they got to kind of overcome a bit of an injury.
So I was gonna say Travis Kelsey.
Okay.
So we're both thinking Chiefs because you're right; those two guys seem to not really have had any like flaw in terms of unluckiness.
Yeah. And, even Tom Brady, he had injury seasons.
Yep. Oh yeah.
It's inevitable with longevity, right?
There's also going to be there is going to be a star player. It's usually a running back that goes down. And I mean, you don't want to pick on CMC like Christian McCaffrey, but always seems like it's him.
Yeah.
So I think we're both. So you got Mahomes, I got Kelsey. I think those are two pretty good answers because one of them goes down, the team's fucked, right? Like their whole offense relies around those two guys.
Oh, yeah. You can't replace Mahomes.
No,
You
you
can't
can't
really
replace
replace Kelsey
Kelsey.
either.
Yeah, can't replace either of them. They're the two
But
best at their position in the game right now.
they're the two best of their positions, but Kelsey doesn't touch every single ball.
Well, arguably,
No, 75% of them.
the entire offense is built around where he is on the field.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of go off topic a little bit here and talk about
We have a
this.
topic?
We've got
I
a
thought
whole
this was
bunch of
just free
topics.
for all. I thought this
A whole
was a
bunch
free
of
for all.
topics. A whole
Yeah.
bunch of topics. We're gonna leave the Pro Bowl question till later. Let's do while we're talking about bad things. What do you think the most controversial thing that will happen this season? Is it like an off-field arrest? Is it something on the field? What do you think if you just had to guess? Coach getting fired. Who do you think? What do you think will be the most controversial thing that happens this season?
Well, there's always the controversy of a bad call that cost one team playoffs. There's always
Happens every
that.
week almost.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's going to cost somebody an important game. There's always that. Unfortunately, there is always arrests.
There's always arrests.
Was there a
Somebody's
big arrest
always
last year? Was Henry Ruggs last year or the year before?
Henry Ruggs was the beginning of last year. Alvin Kamara's thing came out last year as well, right? During the season.
So, I mean, there's always some sort of arrest or charge.
Yeah,
How controversial it's going to be, I don't know. Like the Henry Ruggs one was pretty bad, but I don't think there's controversy. It was just a stupid, poor decision.
yeah.
You
Well, I think
know,
like the
like
referees are always something you could talk about.
yeah,
Games like last year, the Damar Hamlin situation, which thankfully he's
and of
okay.
handle how they handled
How
it.
they handled it was very controversial, even to the point where they had to flip a coin to see who may or may not get a home field advantage
So the
in the
if we actually
playoffs.
go back to that one, the controversy I thought that was the worst out of that was that they'd already started selling Chiefs tickets when it wasn't guaranteed that the Chiefs were going to be going through to that round of the playoffs with the Damar Hamlin game. Because they had to make up what was it? They had to have a neutral site game
Mm-hmm.
in the playoffs if there was a certain outcome because they couldn't rank the teams properly because
Right.
there was an
They
uneven
didn't know if
match.
Cincinnati or Buffalo would be 2 or 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, but so you think, but every stadium does that, whether it's a concert or a game. They always try to sell the tickets before everything's even confirmed.
But what if the Chiefs weren't even in that game? What if they lost?
Well, it would have been the game. I think would have been between the Bengals and somebody else. That's why they wanted to do it at Arrowhead. No,
But it was in Atlanta. The game was going to be in Atlanta.
so then it would have been between the Chiefs and either the Bills or the Bengals. But I mean, like like I said, it's just they have to get this. Other people would have bought the tickets for the both Bills and Chiefs arena or stadiums, so might as well sell the tickets, see what happens, and just give people money back. It doesn't change anything. Just gets them ahead of having to like do all the processing and stuff like that. That's not the most controversial thing that happened last year, not at all. We've seen some coaches get fired, which is controversial. I think the only guy that could get fired early that would be a controversy would be Bill Belichick.
Okay, so I got a couple takes on the coaches getting fired. My guy to get fired this season, if things aren't going well, is McCarthy out of Dallas.
Okay, that's fair.
I could see Bill Belichick. I don't see him getting fired. I could see a mutual agreement for a change. Just they're both decide to end the relationship there.
That would be at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't see him leaving partway through.
Well, he'd have to be fired to leave. I don't see him agreeing to leave halfway through.
No, well, that's what I just said.
Well,
Said those exact words.
not
Uh,
sort
but
of, not
I
really,
could see him
sort of, not
deciding to
really.
mutually part ways with the organization in looking for a change. And this is again based off nothing, but I have a feeling that based on what is it, Kelly Stafford said, Bill Belichick might have a harder time each year connecting with the Gen Zs, right?
See, here's the thing. I will take that. That is exactly why I'm angry about what Kelly said because Matthew Stafford is 33. Bill Belichick is like 75. So I can understand why he would walk out and be like, Jesus, there's a lot of cell phones in the locker rooms these days because guys actually used to play cards when he was back in the dressing room like 50 years ago. Matthew Stafford, there was cell phones around ever since he's played in the NFL.
Yeah.
So that's why it's such a bullshit, like dumb comment for her to make.
No, I get it. He just doesn't like to be on the. He just doesn't have a TikTok account. That's all it
I don't
is.
even believe he said this. I think he just said, "Yeah, some of the young guys, I need them to get a little more serious and look at the playbooks." And she just ran with it because that's what she does.
Sure. I mean,
But
I'm kind
Belichick,
of
I
done.
can see him having a harder time, especially with coaches and players now. Like you can't. A lot of players won't react to just screaming and yelling and that like kind of like strict way of life, especially with like the Gen Zs. So I see Belichick kind of having a little bit of a problem hanging on to that. Um, but he also has the resume to be able to do it.
So that's the other thing I was going to ask about his resume. At what point, and I'm sure it's not this year, maybe it's never, does a bad season start to blemish Bill Belichick's record? Because he's never been to a Super Bowl as a head coach outside of Tom Brady, has he?
No,
And again, this is a cross sport thing, but I've always made this argument.
It's only been 2 years though.
Phil Jackson. I was never convinced Phil Jackson was as great of a coach as people said he was in the NBA. He had two teams, which were among the two greatest teams ever in basketball history. And then the third team was abysmal. People forget about the Knicks, how he couldn't do anything with the Knicks.
The
He had
the
Jordan and Pippen
mindsets
and
between the
Shaq and
two
Kobe.
players though.
Sorry?
You're not wrong, but I mean like
So again,
he helped make the Lakers, he helped make the
I
Bulls.
don't think he's a bad coach in the terms of he's able to connect with his players. But
I think what happened in New York with Jackson, again, this is a basketball topic, but what happened in New York with Phil Jackson is that in LA and in Chicago, he was able to mold that team, like in terms of like bringing players in, bringing the right guys, building chemistry and positions in the way he wanted to play it. In New York, I don't know if James Dolan, the owner, gave him as much freedom with the roster as he would have liked.
okay, now relating that back to Belichick, at what point does Belichick not succeeding without Tom Brady, assuming he doesn't, do people start saying that, you know what, it was so much more Tom Brady than it was Bill Belichick? Because he's currently considered the best coach in the NFL. No?
Here's what I'll say about that. I think that one playoff run with Mac Jones as a rookie the year after Brady left earned him enough respect to not have that conversation for 10 years until people start to forget and they go, well, the only reason he won is Tom Brady. I think for the next 10 years,
Did they win a playoff game with Mac Jones, though?
I believe so.
I thought they got to the playoffs and lost in the first round. No,
We'll look that up as you look it up as I talk. I think that if he makes the playoffs again this year, he just has to make the playoffs, doesn't need to win. Then I don't think that kind of like narrative will ever linger with him. He'll always be considered the greatest coach if he can just make the playoffs. Because you have a guy that's best all time, and then he left and he did win a Super Bowl with somebody else, but at the same time, like you also made the playoffs, and then if you make him again with Mac Jones, I think you buy yourself out of that conversation. Your legacy should be fine. I think his legacy is going to be fine either way, um, because he did groom Tom Brady into what he was. Remember, he didn't get Tom Brady at peak prime. Him and Tom came up together.
Yeah. Now, Mac Jones has one playoff appearance, 0 playoff wins.
Okay. So he still made the playoffs, though, with a rookie quarterback after his all-time best player in the NFL left it.
Right.
So I think he earned some respect for that. I don't think there's gonna be a blemish on his legacy. Now, if he has 5 straight losing seasons, then I think that conversation can happen. But I bet you if he has a really bad year this year, then he probably is done coaching altogether.
Do you think he just wants to step down?
I think you would, wouldn't you? Like, why would you stay if you finish 4-12 or 4-13, whatever it is now? Why come back the next year and risk your legacy at that point?
I don't know if he's playing for legacy. I think this guy, he's been around coaching his entire life, hasn't he?
So yeah,
I think this is his life. This is all he knows. This is all he loves. Like, I don't know if he's really in it for legacy. Like his legacy is cemented. Either way, he's going to the Hall of Fame. You know, he could play for another 20 years and lose every season. He still goes to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, arguably the greatest coach to ever in the NFL.
Sure. So I don't think it's that. I mean, this is just the guys on the couch screaming that, oh no, he's not what he was. Brady made him, right? Like, I don't think it's not the NFL's official perception of him that goes down the drain.
Yeah.
This is ours.
Yeah.
I don't know if he cares about that.
I mean, he's not listening and being like, God damn, I gotta prove something to time Poya.
No.
I think his legacy is cemented in like Canton and just I don't think anyone's gonna say a bad thing about him, especially if he makes just one more playoffs. I don't think he needs to win. If he can just make one more playoffs with Mac Jones, I think he's fine.
But that's the thing, though. A lot of people have said bad things about him, like how like ruthless and cruel he is, and like
Sure, but
there's been a
that's
lot of
like
bad things said about him already, so
sorry,
it doesn't really
maybe
affect
bad
anything.
bad things is not what I meant, but like things that are going to ruin his legacy. No one's going to say anything like that.
No.
Okay, let's do this comparison head to heads here. Get into some of these guys that might have had a new team or are supposed to hit their peak year and have better seasons. So, who do you think is going to have a better season? Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields.
Like, you mean overall better or better for them?
Better
For where they were.
better for their team, better for where they were. Um, Both kind of like an agglomeration,
I
if that's a
think the
word.
Jets have a better record overall, but I think Justin Fields, excuse me, I think he improves more. Aaron Rodgers, for him to like have a better season relative to Aaron Rodgers, he needs to kind of make it deep in the playoffs and win an MVP.
For Aaron Rodgers to have like, yeah, for him to have a better season, it would be
I
super
think
nice.
his team does better than the Bears, but
Sure,
I
I
think
think, but do you
Justin
think
Fields
who do you think throws more touchdowns?
throws more touchdowns. You know what? I'll take Fields on this. I think Fields is on the way up. I think he's going to have a better season. I don't think his team is there. I don't think the coaching, the whole team together is going to have a great season. I don't think they're going to the playoffs.
Right.
Where I think the Jets will be either in the playoffs or not far from it.
I don't think the Jets make the playoffs, but I think that Aaron Rodgers, I think Justin Fields has a more improved season. Obviously, it's hard to do that if you're Aaron Rodgers. Um, but I think Justin Fields takes a big step forward. Aaron Rodgers kind of takes a step back, even though his statistics throwing might be better. I think Justin Fields' on-field presence, the offense, the problem in Chicago is the defense is terrible, and the offensive line is bad. But I think Aaron Rodgers will still throw more touchdowns, less interceptions, but it's the harder division, harder conference.
You got
I
better
think,
receivers too, right?
yeah, and he's got better
Is DJ
receivers.
Moore? I don't
I
know.
like DJ Moore.
People are big on DJ Moore. Was he ever that much of a game changer?
No, no, he's always been disappointing every year, and um, with the Panthers, he's been pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know. I think that I
I
still
still
think Aaron
remember
Rodgers
that
is
footage
Aaron
of
Rodgers.
Steve Smith Sr. talking shit about him, about playing him on his fantasy team, and he's
Yeah,
standing right beside him.
yeah.
I that's the always mental image I have
That's a
of
good clip.
DJ Moore.
Okay, Brock Purdy, Geno Smith, same division.
Brock Purdy.
I think Brock Purdy has a better year than Geno Smith.
I think so.
This one's
Just
tough
his
for
team's
me.
better.
This one's tough for me. But
It
like
is tough. I don't
individually
think
as
Geno Smith
well, I
has a
think
bad year, but I think San Francisco makes the playoffs. Seattle makes it to the playoffs behind them, or not at all. They made the playoffs last year, but
individually, who do you think? Because again, like you said, Geno Smith has to be a better quarterback because Purdy has better weapons.
that's just it. I think
Statistically, who do you think has a better season
statistically,
individually? Individually,
Geno Smith,
statistic wise.
sure. Yeah, Geno
Okay,
Smith. I don't think Brock Purdy needs to take as many risks. I don't think he needs to do as much.
I agree. And this one's tough for me because I don't think either of them have a good season, but I think Geno Smith has better individual stats, but Brock Purdy has more wins, obviously.
Here's what I'll say about Brock Purdy is I don't think he's going to be talent-wise terrible at within his role at the 49ers. The question mark that we could throw at him, which is unknown, is what's going to be his injuries, right? Like, is this
Yeah,
guy going to be an injury-prone guy? When somebody's injured so young, is that something that just lingers on and carries on for the rest of his career?
right.
And I don't have any of that information, right? But he's showing up with after surgery, right?
Yep.
He had surgery in the offseason.
Purdy did, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, okay, here's actually this one I find very interesting because two different types of careers where they're at right now. Dalvin Cook or his brother James Cook. Dalvin kind of been used a lot over the last 4 or 5 years on a new team in the Jets, whereas James Cook is up and coming, expected to be used a lot this year with the Bills.
Yeah, running backs typically they're not as impactful when they go to another team, are they?
No, they're not. They're usually,
It's like they
especially
kind of build their
veterans.
name for they build their name for one team, they move somewhere else, they could still be good, but I'm trying to think of a running back who is impactful for two teams. So far I can think of Christian McCaffrey. He played well for the 49ers. Marshawn Lynch, he played great for
Yeah.
Seattle. His best days were Seattle.
Yeah. But he was still young when he left there. Dalvin
Yeah.
Cook's a little bit on the older side.
Yeah. So I like to take the young guy,
James Cook.
The yeah.
I
But
think James
I don't
Cook
think
as well.
he was never supposed to be as talented, was he?
No, he wasn't supposed to be as talented. And the reason Dalvin Cook eliminated Buffalo to go to play for was because he didn't want to take snaps away from his brother.
Yeah.
I think that James Cook, they have faith in him. He will be the running back one. Um, they brought in some other guys to come in, but I don't think they'll compete for like Damian Harris, and someone else. Won't compete for touches as much as Dalvin Cook has to deal with Brees Hall, who is the second year running back coming off an ACL. But Dalvin Cook might do well for the first 4 weeks. And then I think Brees Hall comes in and starts getting more of the touches. So I think James Cook in this scenario has the opportunity to have himself a better season for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk NFC quarterbacks, specifically in the South. So better season, Baker Mayfield, Desmond Ritter, or Bryce Young. We're going to exclude Derek Carr because we know that he is probably the better quarterback right now out of all
Oh,
four of
sorry.
them.
I missed that. Could you say that again?
I can't, and I won't.
You're praising Derek Carr. I thought you hated Derek Carr. I thought
Well,
you thought he was like the top of the garbage heap of quarterbacks.
no, no, don't do. Don't, I never said that.
You hated the guy.
I didn't like him as much as you loved him.
I liked the Raiders. That was my team.
Well, you still like Derek Carr.
Yeah. Well, so I guess I'm a Saints guy now.
So let's assume Derek Carr has the best season in NFC South. He's set up for sure. Bryce Young, rookie. Desmond Ritter, second year. Who knows what Atlanta's going to do? They like to run the ball. And then Baker Mayfield, literally clinging on to his NFL life in the first 4 games this season. Who you got?
So I don't know much about Desmond Ritter. I want to take him.
Okay.
He's the kind of unproven. Bryce Young, what do they say? He's too small?
He's very short, but we don't believe in that.
Short. We don't believe in that. He's 5'7" and monstrous, right?
First
Is he 5'10"?
first overall pick. He's like 5'9". First overall pick out of Alabama.
Yeah. Desmond Ritter, he played last year, right?
Desmond Ritter played
what, a third of a season?
Started the last 2 games or something like that, last 4 games.
That's it. Okay. It's not a huge amount, but if Bijan Robinson is as good as he's supposed to be, I think that will give Desmond Ritter a lot of breathing room to just know that I have a reliable running back here that can take all the touches to just buy me time to kind of develop.
See, I say the same thing. Everyone forgets that Tampa Bay has two all-star wide receivers in Godwin and Evans. So if someone can just run the ball in Tampa and take a little pressure off Baker Mayfield, he shouldn't have to do too much.
But hasn't Baker Mayfield always had receivers?
I don't know. Who did he have in Cleveland? OBJ
He had OBJ and
Amari Cooper at one point.
Amari Cooper, Jarvis Landry when Jarvis Landry was pretty good.
Yeah, but those guys aren't Evans and other than OBJ and I guess Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper came late though during the Baker Mayfield era. I don't know. Like Evans and Godwin are they're different. Evans, his entire career has had 1,000 yards every year.
Evans is reliable as they come.
Yeah, I think it's Desmond Ritter as well because the Falcons like to run the ball more, and he won't have to do too much. And he can just, if he wants, he can just throw it to Pitts or Drake London, two huge dudes. I think Bryce Young just has his rookie season where, much like
It's a
anybody else,
learning
like,
curve.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, where he just gets beat up, throws a lot of picks, and everybody in Carolina expects that. So I would say Desmond Ritter as well, but I wouldn't put Baker Mayfield out of question for having a decent year.
I've just
Um,
lost a lot of faith in him. Have you ever picked him up in fantasy or been stuck with him?
no,
Just relied on him for a week
no, I'm a much
or
better
just
fantasy
watched
player
him?
than that.
He just I don't see him ever making the big plays. The
Well, he
best
runs,
game of his career was that I guess he did get Cleveland to the playoffs, didn't he?
yeah, and they beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He went like 11-5 or something like that.
I guess that would be his biggest game. I was gonna say that game against the Rams, which was just a
Game for the Rams or against the Rams? His first game with the Rams when he came back and won the game.
only game for the Rams, no?
No, he played. He
He played a couple,
he.
yeah. But no, that
Yeah, I
first
was
game,
rooting
that
for him when we needed the Rams to beat Seattle, so the Lions made the playoffs last year, but it didn't happen.
no.
Okay, it's two old heads here: Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. Who has a better season?
Statistically, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins puts up the numbers every season. Statistically, he doesn't play great in the big game that you need to win, but statistically, he puts up numbers every year.
I'm gonna.
That part is true. That part is just factual.
I just I won't pick him. I think Russell Wilson has a better year. He's got Sean Payton with him. I think Kirk Cousins has a less. He's on his decline even more so than he's not a good quarterback. I'm just going to say that Russell Wilson will be better this year. The Broncos will be better this year. Sean Payton's going to help him out a lot. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to get any
Can you
help this year.
say Broncos country, let's ride after you make this take?
No, no, I can't. Um, okay, so after that's being said, which star player takes the biggest step back this season?
Oh, it's a good one.
I'll go while you're thinking about it. I'm going to go Cooper Cup.
Cooper Cup?
I'm going to go Cooper Cup. And I think he's coming off an injury. He's got a quarterback whose wife's doing all the talking for him. And it seems like nobody really wants to be in Los Angeles on that Rams team right now. So I think Cooper Cup takes the biggest step back. Defenses can hero in on him. He won't have a bad, like he's not going to have a terrible year, but he's going to take the biggest step back from his statistics every time he starts a game.
Yeah. The one that I was kind of leaning to, and I I really hope he doesn't, but Derrick Henry, only for the fact that the guy's been a workhorse
Yeah.
on a team that's really relied on him a lot. And how long can he keep that up?
You're not wrong. Like this should be even statistically wise, like talking about his age, that that shouldn't like it shouldn't be that surprising.
Because
Biggest
he was a phenomenal,
oh
like
yeah, he was are
he
you
was
kidding me?
running over guys,
Yeah.
just getting
He had
tons
two
of
thousand
touchdowns.
yards, did he not? Did he not have 2,000 yards in a season? That's rare for a running back. Okay, so the opposite. Which player takes the biggest leap forward into, let's say, stardom or at least the conversation?
Well, the easy choice would be a young running back like a Bijan Robinson if he does have a great year.
Mm-hmm.
Guy who's going to get a ton of touches, probably a lot of red zone work. I don't know. Is he a red zone guy? I'd assume so.
He's an every down
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
exactly. So if he has a bit of success, I could see, he'll just have a phenomenal season as, some of these running backs who get every opportunity on all the downs do.
Yep.
And again, you see in fantasy drafts, he's going pretty early.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's a lot of expectations for him. So I think he's probably an easy choice. I'm trying to think if there's any other young running backs that are kind of
I
in the
don't
same category.
I don't have running backs, but I do have two guys where their success is going to rely on each other a lot, and that is Kenny Pickett, quarterback for the Steelers,
Yeah.
and George Pickens, his wide receiver. I think both of those guys have potential to turn into stars this year. George Pickens, especially, he's going to make a lot of highlight catches. He's going to have a breakout year. My fear is that the guy that's going to have a breakout year and become a star is Jordan Love for the Packers. That's
Oh,
my fear as a Lions fan,
right.
which I really hope that does not happen.
Yeah, he's got all the he's got the story for Packers success.
I know that's the fear. That's the fear.
But do the Packers themselves believe in him?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yep, his team believes in him. The management believes in him for sure.
Well, that's not good for you.
No, it's not. I know. Okay, let's get some. Let's try to guess some of these awards. Offensive Rookie of the Year. We talked about him already. I think Bijan Robinson. I think we probably both have him.
Yeah. There's a receiver too, no, that could. I'm trying to think.
There's Quentin Johnson, who I also have written down for the Chargers. Um, because we know Keenan Allen and Mike White get hurt a lot. I think Quentin Johnson, coming off of a huge college year, could be Offensive Rookie of the Year this year.
Right.
Defensive Player of the Year, not rookie, just Defensive Player of the Year. I got two names:
Is
T.J.
one of
Watt,
yeah.
Sauce Gardner.
Oh, Sauce Gardner. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times the defensive backs don't win it, but Sauce Gardner's got that swagger. He's got that. Um, he's got the skill set.
What about Bosa? Has Bosa been in this conversation?
Oh yeah, yep. No, that's a good pick as well, especially with the team that he's on. Like they're they're great defensively.
Yeah. Who
You
won it
talk about
last
either
year?
one. I think Bosa won it last year. Did
It
he not?
was Nick Bosa. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His brother could Joey Bosa could also be talked about at
His
least.
brother got injured for a significant portion, I think, last year, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And then Aaron Donald, you don't know what's going on in the Rams, so he's always in the conversation, but like, who knows what's happening over there? Offensive Player of the Year. I'm high
Well,
on this guy. I think he's going to be the first person to eclipse 2,000 yards as a wide receiver.
Justin Jefferson.
No, Tyreek Hill.
Oh,
I think Tyreek Hill has a massive year this year. Tua stays healthy. Tyreek
do you
Hill,
think honestly? Do you think Tua stays healthy?
yes. Well, he's working with stunt guys to learn how to fall.
Still, though, it's. I hope he does.
Me
That team
too.
was so exciting to watch.
Yeah. Team's completely different with him in the lineup. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, Comeback player of the year. I mean, this guy doesn't even need to play well and he'll get it, right? Just needs to be on the field once or twice. DeMar Hamlin is the story tells itself. We don't
Yeah.
even need to talk about it, but if he plays at all, significant amount of time, it's his. Like betting favorite. Don't even. There's probably no one else even in the odds. MVP. I got two guys. It's usually a quarterback.
So did you just think Deshaun Watson wins it over him?
That would be. See, that's what I mean. Is like that would
Yeah.
be such a PR nightmare.
Yeah.
It'd be ridiculous. Do you have a favorite for MVP?
Yeah, I'm still going with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because he was, I feel like as long as he plays to the same level as he did, he's kind of owed it because I think it would have been just as fair to give it to him last year as it was to Mahomes.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I
in
agree
that
with that.
regard,
Yeah, I agree with that. But that team is, the Super Bowl hangover. They always talk about it.
yeah.
I got two quarterbacks here. Um, One of them's won it before. That's Lamar Jackson. I
Right.
think he could win MVP this year if that team does what it's supposed to do with the new offensive coordinator, throw the ball more. Then he can stay healthier longer. And
Right.
finally, some wide receivers can perform there.
Now, that's assuming that I think you're kind of high on Baltimore beating out the Bengals for the division, right?
I am high on Baltimore making the playoffs and having a good year.
I mean, if they're playing that well, their quarterback is getting the MVP. You got to assume they won the division too.
We'll get to those division
Yeah.
predictions. But the other guy and the person I think actually who is going to win it, the MVP that
Trevor
is
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence.
It's just everything. The story is just set up for him to win it. The team is there. Calvin Ridley's there. So it's be his number one wide receiver. We know how good Calvin Ridley is. He just has to get back to that. It might be a little rust to begin with, but I think Trevor Lawrence has all the intangibles to be the MVP, and I think he will do it in his third year in the NFL.
Okay.
Okay. We are going a bit long, so why don't we go straight to what we've been talking about for 4 weeks now, 5 weeks now, that you won't stop talking about. You won't shut up about this. Worst to first. Always happens in the NFL. Which teams? I
Worst to
have them numbered.
first.
I have them numbered here in what who I think is going to do it based on like odds for me.
Right.
So worst to first. Which division loser wins the division this year? Last place to first place.
So I think my best bets are actually the Falcons or the Browns in terms of the teams that have the best probably likelihood to do it.
The Browns. So I agree with you. I think I have Falcons as my number one team to do it. The Browns I have down at 7, only because the Cardinals are going to be worse to worse. But Browns, they're in like one of the toughest divisions.
They are, but they're also just it could be such a tight division that they could just squeak through. I don't think they will, but I'm just looking at the other divisions. Okay. You got the NFC East. Do you think the Commanders do it?
They're number 3 on my list. I got Falcons, Jets, Commanders. Jets because of the like
I think it's too
potential they
tough for them
have.
to overtake. I could see the
The
Commanders
the Commanders,
overtaking.
they only were a game back of the Giants, who made the playoffs.
Right, but this they got to get first. They can't get
Hey,
just the
listen, I mean, that's
playoffs.
all they got to do. And they only played their quarterback. I'm blanking on his name right now, Sam Howell, he only played like 2 games last year. And the coach said, if we had known he was this good, we would have started him all year. And then imagine how many games they would have won.
Do you think Chicago can do it?
I got Bears number 4, Falcons, Jets, Commanders, Bears 4,
Cardinals, you don't have any faith in.
Cardinals 8th, number 5, the
You got
Texans.
okay.
Rookie quarterback, who knows what to expect? Their defense got better. Um, they'd have to like the Colts aren't great. The Titans are on the downs. They should be rebuilding. It's another team we should have talked about as rebuilding. And then the Jaguars, you got to think that they'd have to have a very bad year. But if the Jaguars do have a bad year, a sophomore slump, I guess, from their Peterson's first year as a coach there, then the Texans could sneak up.
Then where do you got the Broncos?
They're next, 6th, and then Browns, then Cardinals. Broncos only because
Sorry, who's your second
second
pick?
is the Jets.
The Jets is your second pick.
I don't think they will, but I just think that their defense and their playmakers are so good that they were kind of only missing a quarterback. Garrett
Yeah.
Wilson's amazing. Brees Hall is amazing. Their
No,
defense,
you're right. You're right.
Quinn Williams, and Sauce Gardner are very, very good. So like if they could just put it together and the Bills take that step back, which we talked about they might do this year, then they just fight in Miami for that
What
first
about your
spot.
Broncos coaching connection to the Jets?
Well, he was the offensive coordinator in Green Bay when Aaron Rodgers was there. So now he's the offensive coordinator with the Jets. Like it's just back to being Aaron Rodgers' offense when he won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So it's all kind of there. The pieces are there. Now to go the opposite way, do you have any division winners from last year missing the playoffs this year?
Oh, division winners missing the playoffs.
So I can tell you last year the winners were um, Bills, Jags, Bengals, Chiefs, Vikings, Bucks,
Yeah,
Niners, Eagles.
the NFC North. That's where I'm going with.
Do you think the Vikings missed the playoffs?
I think so.
I think there's 2 right off the top that you can say almost guaranteed. I think the Vikings missed the playoffs. I think the Bucks missed the playoffs.
Yeah,
And
I agree with
then
that.
I had third. I had Bills because if something happens to Josh Allen or they can't put it together and Diggs gets frustrated, the Bills could have a pretty rough season this year. Then I got the Niners because I don't know. I have zero faith in Brock Purdy.
What's your beef with Brock Purdy? Just because he was last pick. That's it.
Well, he's last pick, and he's only had 7 or 8 games where he was unbelievable in those games as a game manager, and he won all of them when he was healthy. But a full season is different. Starting with expectation is different. Going into a season is trying to salvage a season, save a season. different expectations on you when you go to sleep at night. People are thinking about you starting the next game, thinking about you. You better be good this season.
The only thing I can say is, though, he wasn't salvaging the season. He was maintaining a division lead in an NFC, conference race.
But nobody expected anything out of him. Everyone was like, "Oh shit,
Right, but you don't think you feel bad to knock your team out of the playoffs? Like that pressure of like, hey, we're in the playoffs.
I don't think the pressure's there.
We're going deep.
The pressure, just like the Lions last year, no one expected anything of you. So winning 9 games is just everybody's happy. Whereas no one expected anything out of Brock Purdy last year. So when he won those 7 games, it was like, oh, wow, I can't believe this kid's actually putting it together. What a season. I don't think he lives up to that this year. And another thing, I don't think Geno Smith does either. Geno Smith just earned his first big contract off of one season. I read somewhere that he threw like the most like passes that should have been intercepted in the league at like 27 or something like that. Now, I have no idea how they choose that. But those mistakes will get caught up when people watch more game film of them.
Through the most passes which should have been intercepted.
Something like that. Yeah, like the most dangerous passes or something like that, or
DBs dropped it or something.
Something like that. Yeah, like some things that should have went the other way and just happenstance did not.
Yeah. Well, I have more faith in Brock Purdy than Geno Smith.
I think I go the opposite. I think Geno Smith more faith because he's a veteran. The 49ers just have a better team.
Yeah, but that adds to it, right? He's playing for the system he's in.
Playing for the system he's in? You're talking about Purdy?
Yeah.
Well, Geno's also playing for the system he's in.
Sure. I don't think either one of them necessarily needs to just be abysmal, but why did Geno Smith lose his starting job other times?
I think it started with injury, and then he just wasn't good when he came back.
Okay.
But that was
this is the first time in his career
10 years ago. That was 10 years ago.
So why would somebody get better after 10 years of not playing?
That's what I mean is I don't know. Fluke. Rich Gannon all over again. Okay, want to do winners?
It was a heartbreaking Super Bowl for me. I really wanted Jerry Rice to win that one.
I won the most money gambling that I've ever won on that Super Bowl, betting on the Bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet on them before the playoffs started. And it just
how old are you? 16 years old? 17 years old?
Like that. Yeah. It was one of those playoff brackets that someone had organized.
Oh, yeah.
From like my dad or something. I was able to get in on it.
You won $50, didn't you?
No, it was like $700, $800, something like that. Yeah, it was good. It was I bought like a PlayStation probably from it. Do you want to do the division winners this episode or save that for the end of next episode, which is game day?
Well, why don't we tell people, and me as well, what are we doing for game day?
I'm not telling anybody.
Not telling anybody, okay.
You just got to tune in. Be like, what the hell is going on?
I'm still going to try and come by for that Lions game.
No, the doors will be locked. The fridge
don't put
cold.
The blinds down.
Just the Jello won't be jiggling.
Don't put the blinds down. I can sit on the patio and watch it with you.
Okay,
Don't you have a TV on the patio?
I'll put the TV. I'll make sure the TV's out there on the patio for you to watch. You can hang out with Bill outside.
That works.
There you go. Everybody's happy.
That's
okay. So this is what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. Next week we're gonna do that special episode, which I guarantee everyone is gonna want to listen to, and then we'll do our division predictions. Then.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you everybody for listening to Running Down the Clock here with Poya. I'm Tyler. We won't see you, but you'll hear us next week.
Hey, if you're a fan of Formula One, then I've got the perfect podcast for you. The Pit Stop Podcast, presented by the Ordinary Podcasting Network. After every single race of the Formula One schedule, Jordan and Tyler will break it down, give you some news, analysis, insight, before answering your questions and setting you up for the next race. That's the Pit Stop Podcast, available everywhere you get your podcasts.
Running Down the Clock is brought to you by the Ordinary Podcast Network and is every Thursday running until the week after the Super Bowl. We hope you enjoyed enough to subscribe and tune in again next week.